Happy Sunday, everybody. So I'm going to talk a little bit about fairness today, and I'm going to relate story to the prodigal son and the parable of the workers on the vineyard. And I remember when the kids were little, when you're a kid, man, everything's about being fair, right? Everything's got to be fair, especially especially when you have siblings are involved. Everything's got to be fair, right? You give one to one, you got to give one to the other. And I remember we get them a candy bar, and this was Nathan and Will, I guess, when they were little. And here's one candy bar, and you guys can split it. So, and kids can see to the subatomic level when it comes to that, like how many atoms go into each piece. And we would cut it, and then it was, well, his piece is bigger, and you just got tired of that, got back and forth. So I think it was Arlene came up with this. She said, okay, here's the deal. One of so Nathan, you cut it. You divide the candy bar. Of course, he grabs a knife. He's ready to go. And then look at Will and say, and you get to pick the first piece. And the amount, it was like surgery watching them cut that candy bar, because it had to be exactly, again, to the subatomic level equal, right? So talking about fairness, and there's the parable of the prodigal son. And when you back up a little bit in this, I'm in the 15th chapter of Luke. When you back up a little bit and you take it in context, and he's telling a couple of different parables. It was like rapid fire, and all of it was about caring for people and caring for the lost, and when somebody is redeemed and returned, so we all read. I'll read this. So start with verse 11 in chapter 15 of Luke. Then he said, a certain man had two sons. The younger of them said to his father, Father, give me the portion of the goods that falls to me. So he divided to them his livelihood. And not many days after, the younger son gathered all together, journeyed to a far country, and there wasted his possessions with prodigal living. But when he had spent all, and there arose a severe famine in the land, he began to be in want. Then he went, joined himself to a citizen of that country, and he sent him into the fields to feed swine. And he would gladly have filled his stomach with the pods that swine ate, and no one gave him anything. When he had come to himself, he said, how many of my father's hired servants have bread enough to spare, and I perish with hunger? I will arise and go to my father and say to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you, and I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Make me like one of your hired servants. And he arose, came to his father. And when he was still a great way off, the father saw him and had compassion, and ran and fell on his neck and kissed him. And the son said to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven, and in your sight I am no longer worthy to be called your son. But the father said to his servants, bring out the best robe and put it on him, and put a ring on his hand and sandals on his feet. Bring the fatted calf here and kill it, and let us eat and be merry. For this my son was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found, and they began to be merry. A lot of people stop when they read this parable there, and they kind of make it about the father welcoming the son back, and the son repenting and coming back, and that's true. But there's another aspect to this parable that I see, and about the other brother, the one that didn't run off, the one that didn't waste his inheritance, because the father's inheritance was divided. It said it was given to them. So the younger son got his, the older son got his part. Now the older son was in the field, and he came and drew near the house. He heard music and dancing, and he called one of the servants and asked what these things meant. And he said to him, your brother has come, and because he has received him safe and sound, your father has killed the fatted calf. But he was angry and would not go in. Therefore his father came out and pleaded with him. So he answered and said to his father, lo, these many years I have been serving you. I have never transgressed your commandments at any time. And yet you never gave me a young goat that I might make merry with my friends. But as soon as this son of yours came, who has devoured your livelihood with harlots. You killed the fatted calf for him." And he said to him, "Son, you are always with me, and all that I have is yours. It was right that we should make merry and be glad, for your brother was dead and is alive again, and was lost and is found." So peeling that back, there's a couple of different things to unpack here that I see. The older son was like, all these years I did all this stuff and all these things, and you never threw a feast or let me throw a feast for my friends or anything else. And then this your son comes home and you roll out the red carpet and throw this big feast and everything else. And you can almost hear him going, "That's not fair." And the father's like, everything that is here is yours. That was his half of his estate. It's all yours. But the father was so happy that the younger son had returned and had seen the light and had come back. And it's like the older brother couldn't see that, right? And there's another parable that's in Matthew chapter 20, verse 1 through, where's it at? We'll start with verse 1. So the workers in the vineyard, and I'll paraphrase a little bit, kind of get it, but the vineyard owner needed to hire workers to harvest the grapes. So he went out and he saw some people standing in the marketplace. He said to them, "For you go out in the vineyard, whatever's right, I will give you." So they went. And again, he went out, and this was the beginning of the day. Then he goes out again about the 6th hour of the day, and he says, and the 9th hour, and at the 6 hours later, about halfway through the day, he hires another group, and the 9th hour of the day, he hires another group, and finally he goes out at the 11th hour of the day, and he went out and found others. So, an hour to go, and he goes out and he says, "Why are you standing here idle?" He says, "Because no one's hired us." And he said, "You go out in the field too, and whenever is right, you receive." So when the evening had come, the owner of the vineyard, and this is verse 8, so when the evening had come, the owner of the vineyard said to his steward, "Call the laborers and give them their wages, beginning with the last to the first." And when those who came were hired, about the 11th hour, they each received a denarius, a day's pay. And when they came, but when the first came, the first people he hired came, they supposed that they would receive more, and they likewise received each a denarius. And when they had received it, so they got, all of them got the same. So when they received it, they complained against the landowner, saying, "These last men have worked only 1 hour, and you made them equal to us, who have borne the burden and the heat of the day." And he answered one of them and said, "Friend, I'm doing you no wrong. Did you not agree with me for a denarius for a day's work? Take what is yours and go your way. I wish to give to this last man the same as you." This verse 15 really is where it comes down to. It's the crux of it. "Is it not lawful for me to do what I wish with my own things? Or is your evil eye because I am good?" And so comparing these two parables, I look at this and I go, here's the prodigal son who wastes all this money living a carefree life. The older son's at home working, doing what his father would have him do. The younger son comes home, the father celebrates and throws a big party for him, and the older son is angry about that. And then the parable of the workers in the vineyard, these guys were hired at the beginning of the day. Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad to have work. Yeah, for a denarius, well, that's awesome. Great. And they work all day, and the owner of the vineyard hires people at the 6th hour and the 9th hour and the 11th hour and pays them all the same. So the guys that were first hired were like, "Well, that's not fair. I worked all day and he works for 1 hour and he gets paid the same as me." And the owner's like, "Well, you agreed to this." And so the issue is the owner of the vineyard was good and chose to welcome this person in and give them work and give them this wage. That was his choice. So talking about fairness, I think about this. I'm like, I've lived most of my life as a Christian and denying things of this world and living a Christian life and foregoing the pleasures of this world and a lot of the things of that. And and it's a struggle. I mean, those of you that know, you go through life and you're challenged. The devil doesn't come after evil people, does he? And you go through life and you're challenged, and you fight all your life, and then how do you feel when you see somebody who's lived however they want to live their whole life, and then come to the Lord at the end? Do you kind of go, man, well, they're getting in heaven too, but man, it's like he got to live it up his whole life, and then the deathbed conversions, the death, coming to the Lord on your deathbed, it's kind of like, is it, but the Lord's, so when you back up in Luke chapter 15, the three stories, the three parables, he talks about the woman losing the silver coin in her house and how she'll sweep the whole house looking for it, and losing an ox on the Sabbath day, who wouldn't drop everything to go find it, and it's how you rejoice when the lost come. And that's the way to look at it, that God is good, and he you don't know. I mean, he might have been working on this person their whole life, and finally they listen and they hear, and God says the angels of heaven rejoice at that. So I think about that. I think about, like, I'm a big Steve McQueen fan. I like a lot of his movies, and I've read that actually Billy Graham helped bring him to the Lord, right? I mean, he had cancer and was lung cancer and was dying and was trying everything he could to stay alive, but he had obviously lived the Hollywood life or whatever. But I always thought about that. I was like, here he is at the end, and he sees, and I believe that heaven rejoiced at that. So that's the way to look at it. It's like, well, I've been here the whole time doing this and denying that, and here's this guy living it up, and then he gets in heaven too. What? I think you have to check yourself and go, what's it all about? What's it all about? So anyway, that's my thoughts for today on that. I just was reading through that, and it's a different take on the prodigal son story. Hope this was a blessing. And I hope you have a great Sunday, and we'll see you next time.